Connected Health and Fitness, 2025 Los Angeles. It's been an interesting few days, Mo. What would you say are a couple of the takeaways that we're going to be talking about in the podcast?
We just spent 2.5 days here. There's so much going through my mind. I've got a ton of notes and feedback from these last 2.5 days.
Well, I would agree with you. This is a real mix of different people from different areas. I would say kind of, everyone's sort of leaders in their own field. And the takeaway I've got is that you come here to learn
Yeah.
and to get ideas and to have conversations.
Some of the key themes here, which we're talking about on the podcast, is the gym the new third space? And I think the consensus is that it pretty much is. We talked about GLP-1s, the impact of that. We talked about AI, we talked about healthcare, and then we've got some really, I would say, influential thought leaders who we had a chance to interview and listen to on the panel.
And the final thing I would say is there have been some pretty interesting conversation and people with very, very different views about exercise and getting people to exercise and probably coming at it in a way that I'd certainly not heard before as well. Have a listen, tell us what you think. If you enjoyed it, give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and please, tell 2 or 3 other people. There's a lot of work that's gone into these over the last few days.
We were also proud to have Flex as our partner for this event and really the month of February for L.I.F.T.S podcast. They were also a partner of the summit as well, and their logo's right there.
Yeah, big thanks to Flex, and now I think I'm going to be able to get my athletic greens with a substantial discount.
With your HSA, with your HSA dollars. Yeah, there you go. So we have Eric Bormel, who is the director of Solomon Partners, on this session at the Connected Health and Fitness Summit. So Eric, welcome to L.I.F.T.S.
Thanks, good to be here.
What would you say is top of your mind from a business perspective at the moment? We're in February 2025. What goes through your mind at the moment?
Yeah, no, it's a strong start to the year. Maybe just by quick way of background here, I lead Solomon's M&A advisory franchise in digital health and fitness technology. And so just briefly, I've represented Under Armour on the sale of MyFitnessPal and Lululemon and their alternatives from Mirror in recent years on the B2C side. And on the B2B2C side, I've worked with businesses like TruePill and Virtual Care. I've done a bunch in corporate wellness, a bunch in tech-enabled care management as well. So my view of fitness technology is perhaps a little bit more expansive than that of others. I'd say entering this year, it's incredibly strong. That macro, the economy's hitting on all fronts. Markets are at an all-time high. Rates are down 85 basis points since the peak. CEO confidence is at a 3-year high and climbing. It feels like folks are ready to put more money to work. And so from my lens, it's how do we then drive engagement and action in order to service that? And it's been a fast start to the year, and it's been pretty exciting.
Is there anything you think that the industry should be concerned about? For example, a couple of years ago, we had the bubble with connected fitness, and now there's this resetting of valuations and expectations. I would think that now HVLP seems to be the really kind of hot thing that people are looking at. Solid Core obviously just recently transacted as well, but is there anything that you believe is maybe frothy or overpriced?
Yeah, it's interesting. The last, if you think about where the industry has moved, we were at this peak of inflated expectations 2 years ago, and we moved from that to this trough of disillusionment, to use the Gartner school of thought. We're now at this point in the arc of enlightenment where folks are looking to the future and comfortable with the industry of connected fitness, comfortable with the industry of connected health, of investing more dollars into it. We're seeing dollars increasingly come into the category in an accelerated way over the last couple of quarters. In fact, in my report I just released last month, we highlighted that 24 nearly eclipsed 2022 levels of venture dollars into the category. And so we're starting to see folks come back in. Where will the challenges be? It's if you're too focused on profitability and not focused enough on growth. We're seeing this curve back into profitable growth as a key milestone for folks to be interested in the category. So I think that's an area that folks should be focused on.
When you just on that, so I understand you. So there's less focus on the growth and more on profitability, or vice versa.
Yeah, over the last 2 years, there was a heightened focus on profitability. For the longest time, I kept hearing, we'll be profitable Q4 run rate. Well, you either are or are not at this point, and now we're moving into that next phase of, okay, how do we grow from here? And those that are able to grow from here, whether that is in fitness new modalities or that is in the health environments of new offerings going to employers versus payers, for example, that is where people need to be focused these days.
And where are you seeing that growth coming from? Because there's definitely, whether it's digital or bricks and mortar, there definitely seems to be this circulation of similar ideas with a very similar demographic. Are you seeing growth in terms of the demographic, like more opportunities in areas that people are not looking at? And if so, what are those areas that we are moving into, would you say, in your, specifically in relation to the areas that you're investing in?
Yeah, so as an advisor to the category, for me, I'm looking at businesses that can grow across modalities, that can reach a certain level of scale where we can get involved. We're looking at M&A transactions in the hundreds of millions of dollars that's generally where we get involved. And so it's those that have been able to prove the durability of, say, their first modality and move into the second, whether that is new product innovation across categories or acquisitions. We've seen several acquisitions in the last few years, albeit perhaps subscale, but coming together of businesses to offer more, create synergies, and then drive customers across different product sets to drive growth.
But would you say that's still within, are they still a similar group of customers that they're, so you're buying other businesses, but it's still the same core, or are you seeing any new people coming, like an older demographic or anything new on that side that would be interesting to be aware of?
Yeah, we are, and there's two schools of thought. It's, do we leverage our knowledge of the customer to move them to different products, or do we leverage our knowledge of industry to move to go get a different customer across our core areas of focus? And we're seeing acquirers look at both as ways of growth. In fact, here at this conference, I'm having several conversations with folks, the large scale businesses, about how do we grow from here? What are the opportunities to leverage our strengths to acquire new products, to acquire new customers? So both sides, in order to realize that growth that the markets need.
From a valuation perspective, I always look at things, most people have owned homes, or at least aspire to own a home. And the old adage goes, if you add a pool to your house, right, it adds no value to the house. Right, so you can add things to your home. Some things are going to add value, and some things are not going to add value. Square footage adds value. Pool, maybe not, unless you have the right buyer. And when I'm looking at physical and also digital brands today, they're looking to add things, right? Digital brands or physical might be looking to add AI. Physical brands might be looking to add recovery spaces, other wellness types of services, expanded retail. Are there specific things that if someone who's listening, for either they are a large-scale brand or a mid-scale brand, you would say, go to this area because this is valuable. Is it recovery? Is it having a digital AI personalized based app? I mean, what are some things that, from a banker perspective, you would view as, that's valuable?
Yeah, so to me, as I'm thinking about the areas where we're spending time, let's just say connected fitness, for example. How do you deliver retention in a meaningful way? It's interesting, we've reached this plateau of connected fitness really hitting mainstream, of course, and so where customers are going to come from remains, a requirement for sure. You need to go get new customers, but you really need to focus on retention and delivering incremental value. And so those that can find products or deliver services to existing members, whether that's incremental health services, whether that's incremental content, whether it doesn't need to be fitness content, it could be mindfulness, sleep, nutrition content. Delivering incremental content for that membership seems to be a key theme that we're talking about.
So it's really a focus on retention, because acquisition is kind of getting prohibitive in so many ways, right?
Acquisition is prohibitive. It doesn't mean it's not viable and important. You need to be able to show top line growth in order to deliver for shareholders. And so if you can prove that with, say M&A as a way to drive top line growth, that's another means to deliver for shareholders. Something
interesting we looked at internally is that on average, again, this is being very, very broad, but acquiring a new customer for a gym across all areas is about $300. Retaining them is only $80. So you look at that math, you're better investing the tools that you're talking about, which is around retention, because acquisition is not coming down anytime soon. It can be expensive. So
I was going to say, and is that, so, and I know it's something that gets talked about a lot of fitness conferences from a bricks and mortar perspective, how do we bring more people? How do we grow the industry? Seems what you're saying is that's challenging and it's expensive. On the digital side, then you've got all of the big brands, the Pelotons, for example, that have reached a certain size. Are we seeing a similar thing from the digital perspective then? Whereas yes, there is growth, but it's difficult and it's expensive, and so really just figuring out better ways to provide more services to that in the digital world. Is that similar? Would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to comment on one specific company here, but absolutely that's critical. That's being able to deliver for your customers to show value for the subscription. Look, Peloton's they've raised their prices a few times over the past several years, and you got to be able to show value for that price increase, and that's critical. Let's not forget, Peloton has 1.6 billion of ARR of subscription revenue per year. That's a big number in this category. And look, there are plenty of others out there that have a meaningful amount of recurring revenue themselves. So as you think about where the customers are, certainly Peloton has the customers.
So if you're coming into the space with a new brand and new idea, then really you're going after, you're looking at Peloton and saying, what do I do to basically get some of that market share? That's the business that we're in at the moment.
I think the market share is growing too.
Well, that's what I mean. I'm not sure kind of like...
It's hard because Peloton has a very high retention. The churn is around 2%. So I would look to say, what are things that they're doing to keep that retention, and how could a gym or someone else apply the same types of tools to do that? We want to kind of wrap up with a personal question, which is, do you have any new health or fitness hacks? Maybe you learned something at the conference, something that you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm a big cyclist. I love getting out on the bike outside. Mo, we've ridden together.
We have ridden together.
You showed me how to climb those hills, and I struggled to keep your wheel.
It's all, and I had an older bike.
Mo told me that we're going for a casual ride, and he's got an old bike, so it won't be so bad. Here I am huffing it to keep his wheel. He's flying past me.
I think it was 30 miles. What was it? 30 miles? Is that all right?
But it was a lot of fun. So my commitment after that was, okay, I got to be able to keep his wheel next summer. And so I've been actively working on it. I've been trying to increase my stamina, my speed. I'm out on the bike twice a week.
And I got a new bike.
Oh God. I'm gonna get rocked.
So we'll do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Well, thanks, Eric. Appreciate your time today.
A lot of fun. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate everything you guys do. Love being a listener here.
We're here with Gavin Jennings, CEO of the C.H.E.K Institute, working with a very good friend of the podcast, Mr. Paul C.H.E.K. And I listened to you today, and I thought you had some big balls to stand up and basically, in your own words, but tell all of these fitness industry people that the fitness industry is broken.
Yeah, well, it took big balls to do that as well, Matthew, let me tell you. But the thing is, I'm not trying to be too aggressive with it. I'm just trying to highlight what I found as a personal trainer, why the fitness industry could actually do with a disruption.
Well, so obviously, we were talking before the recording started. I'm clearly intrigued. Some of this sounds like a bit of like West Coast fluffy kind of stuff, right? I'm an East Coast
Paul's
person.
very unfluffy.
Very unfluffy. And look, I've heard Paul on the podcast, so I'm aware. I guess for someone who is not familiar with the C.H.E.K Institute, how would you describe it?
We are integrated health professionals. That's where we are within the business. So fluffy, people could actually say that we're fluffy, but when you look underneath the hood of what we actually do, the level of structure that we actually have with everything, like we're saying, 4-hour musculoskeletal assessment, we analyze everything with somebody's lifestyle, sleep pattern, diet, and the different types of stress that might be going on with somebody. And what we then do is we integrate that into a program to fit the individual. But what we do is we educate people over 1 to 5 years of training. It really is the most advanced training that you can do.
So let's just take myself, because I love talking about myself. So I'm 44. I'm a father of 3. I run a business. I'm involved in a whole bunch of different things. Putting up with Matthew most of the time too,
of course.
and his text messages, which is great. And so my goal is to feel better by the time I'm 50.
Yeah.
And I'm always thinking about that, right? Because I look at very healthy 50-year-old people, which is a lot of people that I know, and they're in just great shape.
Yeah.
They're happier, they're feeling good. I'm like, I want to be that.
Yeah.
How would you walk me through that?
Well, I'd walk you through exactly what I have done. I'm 51 now, and I feel in my 50s, there's something I heard actually, that when you get to your 50s, you're the person that you always wanted to be. And I love that, because my 30s were lovely, my 20s was all about breaking shit, and actually finding the boundaries. My 30s were great, it was the summer. 40s kind of went down a little bit, it was kind of weird.
I can relate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when I got to my 50s, I'm definitely the most peak prime position I've ever been in, health-wise, and I think it's to do with knowing what you want and what your dream is. So the first thing I would actually do with you is find out, what is it that you really want to do? Why do you want to be that person at 50? How does it help you with your dream? What is it that you love, or what is it that you love enough to do on a regular basis to get at whatever goal you might want to do? But I would start off really finding out, what are the limitations with your health? What could be some things that we could actually just tweak? Musculoskeletally, or it could be lifestyle factors. Are you working too much? Are you getting too many text messages? What is it? How can we actually find some balance? But then also, if you want to progress, because I have no intention of retiring, I want to get stronger and fitter. That's what I want to do. So it's, how do we actually support that through a lifestyle program?
So you were kind of doing this longevity thing before it was in style.
Before it was even fashionable.
Yeah.
Are your members frustrated by long lines for squat racks? Equipment like squat racks are in high demand. There's a new solution that will allow your clients to train all the major muscle groups, reduce wait time, and improve your overall gym's efficiency. Curious to know more? Then contact us today. You were on the panel with the guy, I guess, head of performance, I think, for LinkedIn and gentleman from Google as well, and talking about some of the great work that you were doing in their organizations. I think one of the guys sort of said that he's got a team, and their team from a business perspective is to win the championships, and he was telling a nice little story about that. In relation to your story about the fitness industry being broken, some of the great stuff that you've been doing for those organizations that are clearly top of their game, and I'm sure a lot of the people that work for that, why did you make that statement, and what is it that you think that the fitness industry is not doing that you guys have a different view upon?
Well, the thing is, what you've got to look at the data at the fitness industry, and the data of the fitness industry is that 90% of newly certified personal trainers are going to quit the industry within 18 months of certification. So that's 90% failure rate within the fitness industry of personal trainers especially. That's huge. It's more than any other industry. But what you've got to do is you've got to look at, why is that? And one of the reasons why it's happening is, number one, it's a commoditized market. So personal trainers especially, and studios, they're all competing against each other. They're all doing the same thing. It's all fitness. They're all kind of doing exactly the same thing. So that's one big problem. But the other issue is that if you look at the demographic within the fitness industry now, if you look at the demographic in the US, The average age now is 40 years of age. So if you look at most people over the age of 35, they've got at least one chronic dysfunction, whether it be back pain or digestive dysfunction or some kind of stress. So how does a fitness certification deal with that? Because I felt a fake when I was doing it, I couldn't do it. So the problem with the fitness industry is that it's not being personalized enough. And it's being led by really kind of not great education processes, and it's making it far too easy to become a personal trainer and far too easy to fail. So the industry just needs to structure a lot more. That's, I think, what's needed. But also it needs to give more of a career progression to the personal trainers because they've not got anything at the moment.
So we found, and I think largely would agree with that. I just don't feel like people who want to become personal trainers typically come in because they're truly passionate about health and wellness, right? And then they want to get some sort of certification to validate that passion.
Yeah.
But in a lot of ways, certifications just lack the tools, and I don't think it's intentional, but they kind of lack the tools to give personal trainers what they need for today's market, which is you've got a consumer who is pretty aware. They may have an Oura, a Whoop, or otherwise they may listen to Huberman or Peter Attia, and they're already coming in with this knowledge, and then they're looking and say, okay, help me piece this together. The personal trainer doesn't have those tools. So when you look at how would you compare, and then one other thing I'll add is the better personal trainers that are at better gym products like an Equinox or a Lifetime, guess what? They have their own certifications. Like they kind of go through their own process to follow but their ethos is very specific. So how would you compare a C.H.E.K Institute trained trainer compared to someone who comes out of, pick one of the above certification programs?
Well, the thing is, what we operate within the middle ground. So the middle ground is the integrated health industry. So we're not actually in the fitness industry. That's the thing that we've got to get.
So you're in the middle between fitness and healthcare?
We are. We're right in the middle between the fitness industry and the medical industry. Now, my background is I've had clinics. So I've owned personal training studios, and I went into physiotherapy clinics, chiropractic, osteopathic clinics. I've employed so many different practitioners over the last 20 years. And I've seen both sides of it. I've seen the fitness industry, the limitations, and I've seen the rehabilitation industry as well, like the medical rehabilitation industry. And we're just not doing it, especially in the UK, it's a faulty system. So the difference of what we do is we do a lot more with the people that we take on. The other thing is our retention with clients is on average at C.H.E.K Clinic is about 5 years. So instead of like the 4 to 6 month average retention of personal trainers, which is the norm, 4 to 6 months of taking a client on, that's the average. With C.H.E.K practitioners, it's a lot longer because we usually sell a longer type of approach. So we're saying to somebody who comes on board with us, well, we need to do all these assessments, but then we need to coach you all the way through for a period of time. And it's that longevity kind of view with it.
And are you selling, it sounds in some ways that you're also selling a different product. If I hear the way that the gentleman, the two guys this morning were explaining, they weren't necessarily selling a fitness product, they weren't getting you in shape.
Yep.
It was really about kind of high performance, essentially.
Yeah.
How would you describe then, like you've explained the fact that you sit in between medical and fitness, but how would you also describe about the product that a lot of your trainers and certifications are delivering for individuals?
I would say the thing about it is if you're trying to work with everybody, you're going to work with nobody, aren't you? It's the whole marketing spiel with it. But the thing that we excel on is we excel at chronic dysfunction. So that is not acute in nature. We don't diagnose, we don't treat, we don't fix people or heal people. We're not shaming or anything like that. But we work with kind of chronic dysfunction. That's one of the biggest things I've done in my career. But on the other end of the spectrum, I also work with elite and special forces soldiers. I work with performance athletes. And then I work with everybody in between. Because the thing with what we do is we specialize so much more, but we can be very, very individualized to a client when they come through.
So if someone wants to join the program or be a part of it, do you certify, I guess, someone as a C.H.E.K trainer, and then can they go deploy the program in a gym facility, or do they have to come to
No.
C.H.E.K?
So what we do is when it takes 1 year to become a C.H.E.K practitioner.
Wow.
Yeah, okay. And that's all basic level. So that's our basic level. There's another 4 levels on top of that. So that takes about 5 years. But after your level 1, which is holistic lifestyle coaching level 1 and integrated movement science level 1, you can start working with clients on a regular basis. So you can work within a gym environment, which it works super well. In fact, yesterday I did a workshop at the L.A.F.T.S club. And amazing facility, but what they want to do is they want to bring a different level of service within their facility. So for something like, bringing a different service in, which is completely different than personal training, it's a kind of a great opportunity. But other practitioners will work within their own facilities. They'll have their own studios like mine. Or they'll work in medical centres as part of a kind of advanced rehabilitation system. I used to work within the Bolton Wanderers when they were in the Premiership, and that was back in 2005, 2006. But I used to get the patients that had gone through acute work with the physios, then I used to take them and advance them through some more advanced functional work.
So this sounds like, one, it sounds expensive, but it also sounds like it brings so much value. And in an era where, just look at everyone, who's at this conference, or Matthew, you and I, as you're drinking your AG1, which you put away, and we have our O-rings on, and, people are investing more in their healthcare and more in their well-being, and it's because they understand that it's an investment in their health and in their life. I would assume that you're probably more than a regular, someone who's C.H.E.K certified is more than a regular trainer, obviously, because they're more qualified. Yep. I would assume that you have higher retention of that person, like what you mentioned. And I would assume that you're tracking better health outcomes.
We do, yeah. And that's the thing, because we measure everything. And that's the thing that is not even, I've been to chiropractic conferences because I used to employ chiropractors and I used to go to everything. I wanted to find out, And the thing with it, in physical therapy, in physiotherapy, osteopathic, chiropractic, they don't measure. A lot of the time it's eyeball. A patient comes in, they've got some issue, and they're eyeballing the situation, and then they'll write the soap notes, but there's no measurement. What we do as C.H.E.K practitioners, we measure everything to a degree of accuracy. So we've got it, we know where we're starting, and then when we're working through the actual coaching plan, we can go back and reassess. So there's no bullshit. It's literally a case of, this is where we started and this is where we are now, and this is where we're going to get to, Mrs. Jones, or whatever it could be. So it's all measurable. That's the difference about what we do to what the fitness industry does, you see, because we can measure it and it's scalable. It's a structured, scalable solution.
Well, Gavin, thank you very much for your time today.
But we have one last question.
Oh, actually we do. Yes. Go on in.
Oh, I was going to say, and he's the right person.
He is absolutely the right person to ask this.
So we have this one question that we're asking every guest, and you are, I feel like, best suited for it, is, have you learned of a personal wellness or fitness or holistic wellness hack that you've implemented that has had an impact on your life recently? What's a recent thing that you might have learned of?
I read, I'm not sure it's a hack, but I read the book Ikigai. I'm not sure that's how you pronounce it. And it was I just came across it about 4 weeks ago. It's about longevity, the Japanese longevity. And, getting to 51 and all that, getting 52 now, coming up with it, it's a case of, okay, what's the longevity? And, one of the things which struck out to me about wellness and, whole being wellness, which kind of resounds to the Japanese and so many different people, is friendship. You can be doing exercise, you can actually have water, and you can go through the C.H.E.K system. But it all comes down to friendships, and love and friendships. So what I would say is the hack really is be more friendly, have more friendships, spend more time with connecting with people.
I love that. Well, Gavin, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
And learn about the C.H.E.K Institute.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks, Gavin.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we have Lauren Pufpaf and Jeff Yasuda. Both of you are co-founders of Feed.FM. We've been partners of Feed.FM for a long time. You've had a major role in both connected fitness, but also physical fitness, and you've expanded so much beyond that. And just before this, we were talking about how music can play a role in wellness. I guess, Lauren, starting with you first, what are your thoughts around music's role and importance? Because a lot of us, we think about wellness as contrast therapy, red light therapy, foam rolling, but we don't think about music in terms of that.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking to a lot of our partners about pillars of wellness, and as just a simple way to sort of bucket how music can impact them: sleep, exercise, nutrition, stress management, and music. There's so much research coming out now around music's ability to positively impact 3 of those 4, maybe you could stretch it and say nutrition a little bit. But, starting with sleep, music helps you fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer. And then moving on to exercise, it has both physiological and psychological impacts, positive impacts. So motivation, we all know the power song gets you through the workout, but there's also physiological change happening if you have the right music in a workout. And then stress management, functional music is something that we are now composing and creating also at Feed FM.
Great. Okay.
Which if functional means it's not just for enjoyment, it's meant to get you to a different state, whether that is arousal in an exercise environment or lowering stress levels in a recovery environment.
So 2 things. Number 1, you talked about music can help with nutrition. Speak a bit about that. And then Jeff,
that was a stretch. I was kidding.
was a stretch,
That one was
okay.
a stretch, yes.
And then Jeff, are you involved in the creation of this music? Because I know you've got a whole band going on.
I see what is happening
and
here.
You're signed now. You're officially signed to a record label.
Yes.
So are you involved also, and how do those rights work?
So moving back to Feed, so Lauren did mention, yes, we are a label and a publisher now. So we sign artists, and a lot of it has to do with a couple aspects. Number 1, we spend a lot of time with the rights holders, labels, publishers. We also spend a lot of time with artists, and it was kind of interesting during COVID. A lot of these artists that we know and love weren't touring, which is where they make, a lot of their income. And so we thought, hey, this could be a great opportunity for us to actually work directly with artists and have them write and record music for Feed. So that was number 1. Number 2, what was interesting is that because we have been, as you know, involved powering wellness, fitness, maybe nutrition, solutions around content, we have a really pervasive understanding of the demand of the type of music that works and what people want. And because now our scale is large enough, we realize we can actually break artists, right? So we have some of our partners have actually said, people actually discover music on said platform, Tonal, Life Fitness, whatever. And so that's when we thought, maybe we can start, injecting music that makes a ton of sense for the exact functional use case that Lauren mentioned.
The composition process is really interesting for functional music because, again, you're trying to achieve a state change. So our curation team has been working with biologists and neurologists out of Stanford to take the science of how music impacts your brain and where you want to get to and translate that into something that a composer understands. So for focus, for example, you want a steady rhythm, but it can't be too distracting. You don't want lyrics. There are certain frequencies that help attain a more relaxed state. And so they're doing really interesting, nerdy, fun work around how do you take the science and translate it to compositions and then curating at scale for audiences in digital environments.
I was wondering, we chatted about it a little bit last night, but some of the misconceptions around music, whether you're a health club and you're thinking about what goes in the club itself or any of the products that you're doing, or if you've got a digital product and you're including music, what are some of the things I think that people may not know, and also the impact of technology now, because and again, another thing that we were chatting about last night, but AI's obviously involved in music, and I guess being able to understand and predict certain sounds and frequencies that get you into certain states. Like on YouTube, they've got all these meditation frequencies that are just noises, and I was curious: is it about a particular artist or a hit, or is in some cases when you're talking about state change, is it just about understanding how these frequencies come together and evolve and go up and down over time? I know there's a lot there, but yeah, I'd be interested.
I'd say both. Yeah. So I think in the exercise sort of soundtrack environment, it's definitely not just about hits because it is so unique to the individual. So what powers you through the tough part is different than what gets me through it, right? And so there's as much personalization as can be achieved is really what's important there, and that's where AI comes in, just around recommendations and algorithms and tracking what I like and don't like and when, whether it's a modality or time of day.
Yeah, that's a very critical point, right? Because so I love Miles Davis, right? Kind of Blue is probably my
Good choice.
favorite album, period, right? And everyone should own it if they don't. And if they don't know it, shame on you. You heard it on this show first. But is Miles Davis appropriate at all times? Yeah, sure, maybe when I'm having a glass of vino at 6 p.m. or whatever, but is it appropriate during my 6 a.m. workout on tonal, for example, right? And so you know a little bit about tonal, right?
I do a little bit. We'll get to that in a minute.
But is it appropriate, right? So, we've always said, our mission, from a product perspective is often to provide the right music to the right person at the right time, right? And it's easy to say and very catchy. It is very difficult to execute on that, right? And similarly, in the digital fitness world, how do you provide the right workout to the right person at the right time? And it is exactly as Lauren said, personalization. But the matching, and the capability to predict, as you said, that's the golden goose, right? Nobody's really cracked the code on that, right?
So, but you have to have user signal, right? Like as much feedback and data as we can get back from the user, it just helps us, create the experience and figure out what is right for them at the right time.
What are some of the signals that probably are becoming available that weren't available before? Is there anything new on that side?
It's really just about how much we can collect. So simple things like a heart, like a dislike, a skip.
Can you get are you feeding back like heart rate as an example?
Biometrics are tougher,
Really?
so we can capture the data, but feeding it back to our partners to figure out what they can then do with it relative to the music, there are some connection points we're still working through on that, I would say.
But that would be interesting, right? Because I think there's a lot there. I mean, if you're looking at meditation, if you're looking at even fitness, there's so much you could do with heart rate, with activity, with HRV to say these things work and these things do not work. I want to get back to music in a second, because Jeffy, you and I have talked about the music industry for so long. And when I look back at it, this idea of having pop music and having dedicated playlists of popular artists is actually relatively new. I think it started with boutique fitness, maybe SoulCycle kind of popularized it, and Peloton had it. But when you look back at some of the more traditional parties here, let's take Les Mills, for example. Les Mills has made their own music for 2 to 3 decades. Zumba also kind of makes their own music as well. So you look at these traditional, larger companies that have achieved scale, who have incredible experiences, whether it being Zumba or Les Mills or some others, they're not driven by pop music. So what do you think, and it looks like you're offering some of that same services for gyms. So if I'm a gym listening here and there's fear around saying, well, I want to have this playlist, so my consumers want it, the data has shown that is not really true. So the question is, number one, what has driven this need by operators to say we should have pop music? And then number two, do customers really want that?
Do you want to say that?
No,
well, a couple things. Part of what's driving the need is just consumer behavior. So how you consume music and your availability to everything all the time on demand, exactly how you want it, is definitely coloring what you expect from your gym experience or your app experience. So part of that, the consumer demand has changed just because how we consume music has changed so much. But then do you want to talk to the popular music part?
Yeah, and so, in our forum tomorrow, we're going to go through a lot of this in terms of the type of music, the genre of music, what is defined as pop, right? Remember, pop is actually popular music, right? Pop is short for popular music. So in the 1930s, what was pop music? Pop was swing jazz, right? And it's and it's evolved so much over time now, right? And I love what Beyonce said at her Grammy speech, which is, this term called genre was this little annoying way that the industry has used to put us in our place, in a spot. Remember that Beyonce won as a
country, wasn't it? Yeah.
Right, and that as a black female artist has never happened before, right? And it's amazing, right? I mean, she's a country artist.
Right.
She's also a rapper. I don't know if you knew that, right? But so, pop means so many different things, right? But, I think, to your question, which is, well, what are people listening to in fitness? Yes, the mass, I wouldn't say the mass majority, we found about 56% of all the streams last year, were in this broadly defined pop category, right? But, there's rock is coming back, guitar-driven rock music, sort of our favorite jams of late, right? These are, the nostalgia element, right?
Throwback's big.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with popular, what we find works best for people is about 75% music you know and love, so it's familiar, you can sing along, it kind of has the right beat, right rhythm for you, and then about 25% discovery. So you also want to be hearing something new, and there's that expectation, particularly with the brands that are more instructor personality driven, like show me the new thing, let me hear the new thing, not show me.
Well, real quick, speaking of that, because we're getting close on time, we like to wrap this up, at least for this series, we're wrapping it up with a personal, hack or wellness tip that you have. Jeff, I want to start with you because it's related to what we talked about with instructors. One, like we're both on Tonal. We'll get in that in a minute. They have these high energy instructors. Tonal also is on Feed FM, and I'm constantly like changing the stations depending on my mood and the intensity. So that, I have a way to match the intensity of the instructor with a great channel curated by Feed FM. So
thank you for that, by the way.
Of course, Jeff, your personal hack, I think, is to make sure that I don't catch up to your strength score. I think that is your 2025 goal. I've committed to it. I screenshotted my Tonal strength score, which is under 900. You're over 1300. I'm not keeping tabs.
Just counting.
I'm not counting. I'm not counting.
Clearly.
But Matthew, in
You
3
say
months.
900, I say 1300.
In 3 months. So the question is am I going to work harder to catch up to him, or is he going to work harder to make sure that never happens? So
Both.
we will
Some
see.
of both.
but do you have a personal...
Inquiring mind. It's funny, and this kind of, everyone here at this table is a founder, right? Started our companies from an idea. Everyone at this table right now. And so that requires a very special and unusual mindset, right? Now, obviously, the ability to see beyond and see through things, but it also requires incredible level of competitive drive. And that's not necessarily because you want to beat me in Tonal or whatever, but because it's a competitive drive for yourself, right? You have to push yourself to the next level. You have some little voice in your head that has to be silenced by action, right? And so, yeah, I am very competitive.
That's your hack.
Lauren, what's your hack?
Well, specific to music, just pull it back around. Focus music.
Now the
is my
adult
hack.
is speaking.
Focus music is my hack. I'm sort of addicted to it. There's so many distractions, especially, Slack, constant. We're building a new product that, there's just constantly coming at you. So when I need to actually write or actually think or design something, it's really very helpful for me. Focus music actually helps two things. So one is to help your mind from wandering, so it keeps you in the moment, but also blocks out distractions, right? So it's, for me, that's been really helpful lately to just turn off Slack and turn on some focus music.
If I can add one more thing for the record, which is
You only allowed one hack. Go ahead.
Okay, but it's not a hack. Now I'm kind of changing. So one of the things that has been fun, music is very core, and you were teasing me a little bit about my album that we released this year. But what is really fun, so Lauren and I actually just did a show together.
We did.
Okay. So Lauren is an incredible vinyl DJ. If I may say, you were pro. You were doing this full time for. It wasn't like
For a period of
just
time.
Okay.
This wasn't a side. gig.
DJs don't get benefits. So I was like, okay, I need to pull it together.
Incredibly talented. So we ended up doing a show recently to benefit our friends in LA during a very unhappy time. But what was fun is we all got up and just like the artists that we know and love, we got up there and performed and worked our butt off, rehearsed all this.
I did not know that. I love that.
Yeah, we have a lot of musicians in our company, no surprise. So our VP of Marketing's band also played, and our head of curation also DJ'd. So we had a little family affair.
Yeah, and it
it's
was
cool.
actually at the same venue where Kendrick Lamar, is very topical now, had performed. This place called Brick and Mortar Music Hall in San Francisco. So it's like, this is some
for you.
history here. But it was
Fantastic.
fun. So,
Well, thanks for your time today, guys.
Thank you.
Great conversation.
cheers. Thanks for
guys.
having us.
Yeah, I appreciate
No,
it.
that was fun. Natalie Barnes, you are the VP of Product at Zumba. It's a brand that needs no introduction. Zumba's done incredible things around the world. Is this our first time having Zumba on the podcast? Have you ever had their founder?
No, I don't
Alberto?
think we've had Beto, isn't it?
Yes,
Yes.
there's three of them.
Oh, I didn't know there was three.
Beto, whose real name is Alberto.
Right.
He's the creator of Zumba, but Alberto Perlman,
Yes.
who he's the person that made it into a business along with Alberto Aguillon. All three of them are Albertos.
Okay.
No way.
Yeah, yeah.
I did not know that.
and
neither.
Alberto Perlman and Alberto Aguillon were best friends ever since they were young.
Okay.
And so they met at, Alberto Perlman tells the story much better than I can, but his mom actually went to Beto, who the creator's class once, and told him, you have to meet this guy. And then I guess eventually he's like, okay, I'll go meet this guy. And he met him, and then they decided that, let's sell DVDs, And then after selling those DVDs, apparently they started to get a lot of requests for people that want to be trained and become an instructor. And then eventually that evolved into something else. And then they have a shop, and then they have a business, a license, and here we are,
How many years later are we?
Started in 2001, so we're at year, 20...
Three?
Yeah, I mean,
Three.
it got a lot of people to move, right? And Zumba was just fun. And what I remember of it is, I didn't take Zumba early on. I've been in a couple Zumba classes, but when you look through the glass windows of the gym, people didn't feel like they were working out. They were there to party
yeah.
and have fun.
Yeah, it's it's funny because a lot of people think of it as exercise in disguise. Like you're partying, you're having fun, but you're also working out. Like it's almost like you don't realize that you're exercising, but you're sweating.
Yeah.
And you're just letting loose and having fun.
Well, how's Zumba managed to do such a good job in staying relevant and evolving from DVDs, then going into clubs and having this license model? And so I know some interesting things about Zumba. One, I know you make your own music, so you kind of have it make your music. You, instead of licensing it to the clubs, you actually have instructors who get certified and then have the class and then also the music. There's like two kind of components here. How has that model evolved from the first days to where it is today? And now you have a whole online digital product as well.
Yeah. Like I said, we started with the DVDs and then they did infomercials and so on, and that started to grow. But the licensing part of it, I think, is what catapulted everything. So they started training instructors, and so the typical process for an instructor is that they go to a training, we call it a basic one training, and then you have the option after that training to become a part of this Zumba Instructor Network, which gives you the ability to have all of your choreo, your music, your tools for you to be successful. So you have that option after you take a training to actually become a part of the Zumba Instructor Network. If you do become a part of that network, you pay a monthly fee. And you pay a monthly fee in order to continue to get your benefits. One of the things that we notice is that when these instructors get trained, they get trained by our ZESs, which are educational specialists. And a lot of them are so, so into the brand, and they're so into that experience that the percentage of them that actually become a Zumba instructor right there at that training is, it's close to 90%.
Wow.
They all believe in the product because, you're there, you're doing
Been
this, it's
indoctrinated.
fun. Yeah, and you hear about all these tools for you to be successful. And most of them probably are teaching part-time. So they're just interested in being a part of the community. And if this is a part-time gig for you, you have all the tools that you need to be successful. So we started to get more and more instructors and more demand for Zumba in general. And then after that, they created they started creating T-shirts. I remember the very beginning. I wasn't there, but it's a story that was told to me. They started creating T-shirts, and then everyone wanted T-shirts. So they had to make more and more. Then all of a sudden, they realized there's something here. They want the clothing, they want the branding. So then they started an e-commerce business. And then we started, when I got there, we used to do the DVDs and the CDs. We used to mail those out. So every other month, they would either get a CD with music on it, new music for their classes, or they would get a DVD with music and choreo. So we just alternate those months, and those things would be shipped out all over the world manually. You could imagine the cost and everything. So when I got there, one of the biggest projects I did was actually digitizing that. So now they actually get that content in the platform. And then a few years later, we created an app for them to be able to get that content in the app. And now they can actually create their own playlists and do their classes using the app and using the music and the choreo and so on. They practice with the app. So
today you were here talking about AI in particular. Like what are you now thinking about as an organization in relation to AI? Why is it relevant? Is it relevant? And what have you learned from today's session?
Yeah, for us it's we started digging into AI last year. We started looking at ways that we can leverage the tools that we have and make sure that we use AI in a way that it adds value to the end user. So we started looking at it. One of the things that we're very focused on is making sure that we understand the data, understand the behavior. We have data everywhere. We have 3 different analytics tools that we look at. And sometimes it's hard to make sense of that data and make decisions fast enough that it actually has an impact. So AI for us allows us to be able to take that data and analyze it and be able to put in place solutions to actually add value to that experience for the user. A great example of that, we recently launched a Zumba app. So in the past, we've been very focused on our instructors and making sure that we build tools for the instructors. And that will never change. There will always be the core of our business. There will always be our focus. But we realized after the pandemic that we needed, there's this market that was looking for great on-demand Zumba content. YouTube, of course, has content out there, but it's not curated. It's not, made by Zumba. So we realized that there was a need there. So we built the app, and the app was launched. Zumba app was launched about a year and a month ago. But one of the things we've been doing with the app a lot is making sure that we use AI to improve our onboarding process. Mm-hmm. So making sure that we are dynamically updating our onboarding so we can address the needs of our users. We also use AI to surface insights for us for that experience. When we noticed that, we use this tool called loops.io. Not sure if you guys are familiar with it, but it surfaces insights for us. We actually put all of our data into there, and one of the key inputs that we got from it was that if someone takes 2 classes within the first 3 days of downloading the app, they're less likely to churn. So noticing that, we started digging in a lot more and using mixed panels. Mixed panel has like an AI component of it, just to see the correlation of, okay, what else are they doing? And does this correlate to that finding that we found? And trying to validate that information and make sure that, we're not just going to, push them to take 2 classes. Like there's other things that they probably should be doing. So that is one way we're leveraging AI for our Zumba app. On the instructor side, we leverage it a lot for trying to make sure that we are nudging them at the right time, motivating them at the right time, sending them the right messages at the right time, because they do get bombarded with a lot of emails that we send, a lot of notifications, and we realize that there's a lot of noise out there. So we're using AI to help us sift through the noise and not just, keep bombarding them with information and they're not engaging with what we're sending.
Yeah, that's kind of what we've been talking about, is using AI as a back-end tool. There's a lot of back-end applications of how to use. A lot of people think about AI being as an agent or this front-end tool, but really, right now, there's so much you could do on the back-end. So I think that's really brilliant. And the other thing that we talk a lot about is work with platforms. You talk about Mixpanel having an AI tool. Work with platforms today and implement them so that make sure that those platforms have AI and use it, because the insights could really be strong. So what do you have, kind of what's big for Zumba? You know, and I'll give you two things. Number one, what's anything exciting for Zumba coming out in 2025 that could be interesting for the audience? And then the next question I have is a more personal one to wrap up, which is there a health and wellness hack that you've personally kind of learned in the last few months that you found to be super helpful?
Interesting. Okay. I'll tackle the first. One of the things that a few years ago, we built this thing called Zumba AI. This was pre-pandemic, actually, and we used it on our Zen members at convention. This is how we tested it. So what it is just a tracker. So you have your phone, you have the camera, and if you're in the frame, the camera tracks your joints. And then when you do the movement, like we have a song and you have to do the dance, it tracks how close you are to the dance. It's kind of like a gamification thing to help you learn the salsa, song, or the salsa choreo for this particular song. So that is something we did that was forward-facing with AI way before AI is where it is today. And we're actually planning on revamping that this year for our site and our instructors and so on. But we do have some ideas in mind for how we can actually help students learn the moves faster, because one of the things that we always hear is that people are intimidated by, going into a class because I don't know the moves. I've never, you feel like you're going to be out, everyone else knows what they're doing, but you have 2 left feet and you don't. So we're trying to get over that intimidation factor that people have when they first try to do Zumba. There's a lot of people we heard that are interested, but they're scared. So they look like a fool in front of everyone in the class.
I would do, for sure.
Yeah.
I need that app.
Yeah, so hopefully that will help overcome some of those fears. And then the second question you had for me was regarding if there's any hacks, I guess.
Or anything
fitness.
new that has got your attention from a health, fitness, diet, nutrition perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking a lot about fitness in general, and also, what we do. And as a product person, like, I'm always thinking about the user, what is most valuable for the user. And I do think that there is more of a need for that holistic approach to fitness and wellness. There's nothing out there today that is actually looking at not only your fitness level, but what about your sleep, your nutrition, there's so many things that make up your fitness and wellness. And we are trying to figure out, like, what is the best way for us to be able to give our users what they need, because let's face it, they're not doing Zumba every single day. No one is doing any exercise every single day. But we want to be a part of their lifestyle. So how do we bring in tools and bring in things to make sure that they understand their entire fitness and wellness makeup? That is something that I wish for myself personally. Like, I wish I had like an app that just told me, okay, I slept only 5 hours today. You should probably do some meditation or do something a little bit lighter and, take it easy a little bit. Or you seem a little, if I have an aura ring or whatever, you seem a little bit down today, let's do this. Or you have a lot of energy today, let's try, going for a run. Like, I wish there was something that can kind of look at your entire...
There actually is.
Okay.
I will connect you with that offline.
I would
yes.
love to find out what that is.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah, that's it. That's a wrap for the event for us. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for joining.
Well, thank you guys for having me.